Something extraordinary is happening in Pittsburgh right now, and you need to know what's going on. Omar Khan is planning a blockbuster trade that will completely change this season. And that's not even the craziest part. Because just when fans thought the locker room was calm, Mike Tomlin decided to publicly criticize a wide receiver. Let's start with the play everyone is talking about. All right, here's what's happening in Pittsburgh, and it's got everyone on edge. The Steelers aren't just poking around before the trade deadline, they're hunting. General Manager Omar Khan has apparently decided that playing it safe is off the table. Reports say he's been making calls all over the league, testing the waters for a potential season-changing deal before the clock hits zero at 4 p.m. Tuesday. And it's not hard to see why. The team's sitting at 5-3, leading the AFC North, and Aaron Rodgers is out here reminding everyone he's still got something left in the tank. But this might be his last NFL season. That's the urgency. The window is open, but it's small, and Khan's not trying to waste it. Word is, the front office has been exploring ways to add one more big-time weapon to help Rodgers push for that elusive playoff run. Mike Tomlin even hinted that something big could go down before the deadline. When Tomlin starts dropping breadcrumbs like that, you know something's brewing. NFL insider James Palmer doubled down on Bleacher Report, saying the Steelers have been one of the most aggressive teams out there right now. Not just browsing, actively pursuing. Palmer said all morning he kept hearing the same thing. Pittsburgh's out there, chasing names, and fans, they're restless. They've watched other contenders make bold moves, wondering when Pittsburgh would finally step into the arena. Khan's been quiet on the surface, but behind the scenes? It's chaos. Phone calls, negotiations, a mix of excitement and anxiety echoing through the front office. Because every deal at this point isn't just about this week's matchup. It's about Rodgers' legacy and Tomlin's shot at breaking that playoff drought that's been hanging over the franchise since 2016. Think about it. Rodgers came to the Steel City surrounded by doubts. People said he'd be a distraction, too old, too Hollywood. Instead, he's become the leader they didn't know they needed. The guy's 41 and still throwing lasers, pulling rookies aside after practice, setting the tone in the locker room. It's why Khan feels pressure to get him another target. He knows this team's close. Close enough that one right trade could be the difference between pretty good and Super Bowl contender. But it's a high-wire act. Make the wrong move, and you risk chemistry. Make no move, and you might waste a once-in-a-generation shot. The trade deadline is brutal that way. No middle ground, just winners and regrets. As Palmer put it, Pittsburgh is one of those teams that's been mentioned to me all morning as aggressive. That's the word that keeps coming up. Aggressive. Not reckless, not desperate, determined. Khan's not asleep at the wheel, he's flooring it, trying to get this roster over the hump. But just when fans thought the front office was handling business, things took a sharp turn on the field. Mike Tomlin had a few words, and they weren't exactly friendly ones. Roman Wilson is a kid with a ton of potential, but lately, he's been giving Steelers fans heartburn. Drafted in the third round back in 2024, the guy was supposed to be one of those instant impact players. Fast, confident, built for highlight reels. But injuries threw his rookie year completely off track, and since then, it's been an uphill battle trying to find his rhythm in Arthur Smith's offense. Lately, though, things were finally starting to click. Wilson had been showing flashes. That burst after the catch, that Michigan toughness everyone loved on draft day. Then came the Colts game, and that's where it all went sideways. Late in the fourth quarter, Steelers up 27-17, just needing to drain the clock. Rodgers tosses a quick screen to Wilson. Simple play, safe play. But instead of tucking the ball and going down, Wilson decides to try something flashy. He goes for a hurdle over a defender, Cam Bynum no less, and it ends terribly. The ball pops loose, Colts recover, and suddenly the game that should have been wrapped up is wide open again. You could feel the stadium shift. Even teammates were yelling like, "Dude, what are you doing?" Luckily, the defense bailed him out, holding on for a 27-20 win. But the damage was done, not on the scoreboard, but in Tomlin's patience. The man does not do reckless. And when he hit the podium that Tuesday, you could tell he was still fuming. "You know, there's been steady improvement," Tomlin said, trying to keep his composure. Particularly Roman Wilson of late. Other than that boneheaded lack of ball security late in that football game. That's classic Tomlin right there. Brutally honest, no sugarcoating. When he calls something boneheaded, that's code for, "You're lucky we won, kid." But to be fair, he didn't completely throw Wilson under the bus. He pointed out that the young receiver has been improving overall. Better routes, more consistent hands, smarter positioning. He's just still learning how to finish games the right way. Tomlin's been clear. Talent doesn't matter if you can't protect the football. He even mentioned that he feels good about the overall group of eligibles, receivers, tight ends, emphasizing that everyone's expected to contribute, but also to play smart. It's about accountability, and Wilson's now got a big lesson to carry with him. The silver lining? Wilson's started to steady the ship since then. He's caught passes in 4 straight games, and even had his breakout performance against the Packers in Week 9, 74 yards and a touchdown. You can see the potential. It's there. He just needs to let the game come to him instead of forcing a highlight moment that turns into a meme. And honestly, fans are split. Some say Tomlin's tough love is exactly what Wilson needs. Others think the kid's confidence might take a hit after being called out like that. But one thing's for sure. When Mike Tomlin calls you out by name, you hear it, loud and clear. And just when it looked like the Steelers were ready to fix that receiver problem once and for all, boom, the deal everyone was waiting for slipped right through their fingers. You know that feeling when you're watching a trade rumor unfold and it's so close you start refreshing Twitter every 2 seconds? That was Pittsburgh this week. The Steelers were in the mix for one of the top wideouts on the market, Jacoby Myers, and fans were buzzing like it was already a done deal. Then, the alert hit. Myers wasn't heading to Pittsburgh. He was going to Jacksonville. According to Adam Schefter, the Steelers showed serious interest, but backed out once the Jaguars put their offer on the table, a 4th and a 6th-round pick. That's a steep price for a rental player whose contract runs out after the 2025 season. In other words, Jacksonville might have just paid premium money for 9 games of Myers before he hits free agency. Honestly, Khan made the right call there. That kind of move screams desperation, and the Steelers aren't in that spot. Sure, they could use another weapon alongside DK Metcalf and Roman Wilson, but blowing 2 draft picks for a short-term receiver? That's not Pittsburgh football. The front office has always valued patience and long-term flexibility, especially when the team's already competitive. Meanwhile, the Jaguars were in full panic mode. Down Travis Hunter indefinitely, Brian Thomas Jr. dealing with an ankle issue. They had to make something happen. Pittsburgh didn't, and that's okay. They've still got time, and there are other names floating around. Calvin Ridley, Rashid Shaheed, both interesting options, but not at any cost. Still, the Myers trade changed the landscape. It set the market. Now every GM knows what the going rate is for receivers. That's the downside. Prices just went up across the board. So now, if Khan wants to make a move before the deadline, it'll take even more creativity to pull it off. The message is clear, though. The Steelers want to improve. They're just not going to burn the future to do it. Man, it's never boring being a Steelers fan. One minute we're chasing trades, the next we're watching Tomlin drop truth bombs, and then we're debating draft picks. But that's Pittsburgh. Chaos and hope in the same breath. So tell me, should Khan have pulled the trigger? Hit subscribe. Next week's going to be wild.